Great taste. Sweet. Sour. So good to taste.
Welcome to Great Taste on solar-powered KRUU FM. We're live from Hy-Vee. And, boy, we've already chased one person away. It's amazing. Dennis Lopp just got up and left already. I'm Steve Boss, and we're very happy all of you are here that came actually to listen. That's right. And of course, all the listening audience out in the stream, or on the stream, wherever you... I wonder what stream that is. I wonder if it's a trout stream. Should be, right? Because it's a food... Right, it's a food show. It should be a trout stream. All right. Anyway, I think I better stop. And we are going to focus this program on local regional food economy. And in addition to that, we're going to taste quite a large variety of cheeses, many of them local and regional. Well, they're all local and regional somewhere. And there's a couple of amazing cheeses out there that are local and regional to California that I really thought very much about not putting out, because Chef Rader brought them and they are amazing cheeses. But you guys deserve it, so we'll put them out. And and we'll get to those later. And we've got Nathan Aldred here from Indian Hills Community College in the culinary department, and he's going to be talking about cheeses and a little bit about wines. We have quite a few wines to taste also, along with our cheeses. And I think what I would like to do to get us started is introduce Chef Rader, because one of the most important aspects of this whole discussion about community and local and regional food economy is a project that really Chef Rader has been spearheading for the last few years in Ottumwa Market on Main. And for those of you who are not familiar with Chef Rader, he is the director of the Indian Hills Culinary Arts Program. But beyond that, he is an amazing individual, and an individual so full of knowledge that we are really lucky to have him in our community. So, Chef, how about telling us a little bit about what you've been doing, in Ottumwa all these years?
Well, I appreciate that introduction. That's really nice of you. I tell you what, some of you remember 4 years ago, we talked about this thing, some kind of a marketplace. Because obviously, when I came to Ottumwa to take over the program, it's all about food. And we wanted to try to reestablish a culture of cooking. Iowa is well known for its agriculture. And aside from corn and soybeans, which is wonderful, there's a lot of small independent folks trying to do some neat things. And it's important as chefs and cooks and chefs in training that they understand that things come from the ground, and that the folks that consume the product understand how to cook it. So the idea behind this marketplace was to create an educational facility that was community-based, which reached out to the public to bring in agricultural products into that facility, to have education and music and song and celebration, to bring people from other areas to come to Ottumwa to buy your product. So ultimately, it's all about the farmer. When you go to Hy-Vee sometimes, and anytime you go to Walmart, if you look at the baskets, and I always do this, I'm inquisitive, nosy, some people would say, what do they got in their carts? And it's frozen food. Mom with 6 kids, and it's all frozen product. And I go over and I say, so you thinking you're saving some money with that? Of course, she's like, who are you? Of course, I always keep this on. I'm just curious, right? I'm just curious. I'm curious. Do you think you're saving money by doing that? Well, I don't have time to cook, So that's the whole point. People need to know how to cook some of the products that you bring in. They need to be familiar with it. It needs to be fun. It shouldn't, there shouldn't be any hubris involved. So Diane Haas, who is the interim director of the market of the Ottumwa Main Street Association, she's, to me, the director. She's going to be the director for a long term, because she's responsible for a lot of great things in Ottumwa, and we talk about the Bridgeview Center, and this is the one that really made that happen. So I am pleased and delighted to bring her here tonight, and certainly to work with her so that she can share some of the ideas that we've got, where we are at this point, and what we'd like to see from you.
So this vision, by the way, just so everybody knows, the vision of Market on Main is what Diane's going to talk to us about. And then we're going to introduce some of our local producers to talk about how this vision might fit into some things that are going on in our community and how it actually applies to all of Southeast Iowa. And Dennis Lopp, the catering manager from Hy-Vee, is here also to talk about how it works with a retail establishment, a retail grocery store. Diane?
Well, thank you. I'm happy to be here. I'm glad so many people are interested in this. And what we're doing is securing the region's access to safe and consistent foods. And we're hoping to build capacity for our region locally, not just Ottumwa, but Fairfield and Oskaloosa, the whole area, such as even Van Buren County and Appanoose County and Davis County. So we have a large area that we're hoping to help bring in more foods. And our particular community doesn't have a very large and active farmers market, whereas Fairfield has an awesome market. And so we want to be able to help those producers also have a larger market for their produce and products.
Now the vision is really built around a particular building, right?
Yes, we do have an old building on Main Street which has been purchased, and we have now, it's in a lot of need. And so now we've hired an architect and have a floor plan pretty well firmed up, and are raising the rest of the money so that we can go ahead and proceed with the construction of this. And our goal is hopefully to have it open by November. I know some people say, November, what are you going to do with the farmers market in November? Well, there are lots of things that we need all the time. We need meat, cheese, and eggs, and dairy products, and there are those people who have high tunnels who can give us greens, and I know that there are some people raising tomatoes that are available year-round, and I just heard today they have cucumbers in that hothouse that they've got, so I think there's lots of things available for us to work on.
And we certainly don't want to forget the artists and the craftspeople. This is a great venue for those folks as well. And last night we were downtown at the radio station, and we had a big turnout. It was great to see a lot of folks that I know, but new folks that I don't know, that are artists and growers, and a lot of young people. And that's a good sign, because we're working hard to promote the young professional organization. We're trying to bring people in from other areas to invest in the community. Indian Hills is an important educational facility there. And this all ties together so that we can bring something interesting. I mean, there's not really a great restaurant in Ottumwa. I mean, there's no fine dining. There's 14 pizza places, and there's nothing wrong with pizza. I'll have one once a year, right? Okay? But if that's all we're eating, okay? But I want my students, we always have to go to Des Moines, we have to go to Spain, we have to go to Chicago. I want to be able to create an environment where music, literature, art, culinary arts are part of the system, and the government and our country is in such a state of affairs that the only solution is the local solution, and it's about communities coming together. And we've always had such great support from you guys in Fairfield. Every time I come, I always feel so welcome. And we've had great conversations in the past, but I am really excited at this point in time to come back to you and talk about this project, which is going to come to fruition.
So we're going to get back to Market on Main and a little bit more about the type of people you're trying to attract that you want there on a permanent basis. Mm-hmm. Before we do that, I want to just introduce, there are 4 farmers here. I'll call them farmers because they're producers who farm, and they're from Fairfield, and they're fixtures at the Fairfield Farmers Market. We have Cary Spray from Nature's Way, Claude Nicholson, Sharon's Produce, Steve McLaskey from the MUM Greenhouse, and Barb, Barb Grijalva. How'd I do? Not bad. Grijalva. All right, that's okay. you'll forgive me, back to basics. It took me, 2 years to be able to write my check to you properly, because I could never remember. Anyway, I'm not singling Barb out because everybody here does a fantastic job, but I will say, if you haven't had her corn, and popped it in your home, you've never eaten popcorn in your life. Because this popcorn is extraordinary. It's crazy. I mean, I'm still amazed at how I can get so worked up about this popcorn. But every time I pop a batch of that popcorn, I'm just like, wow, where's everybody else at? I mean, what's wrong with everybody else's corn? Anyway, the Fairfield Farmers Market is outdoors during the late spring and summer and early fall, and then of course it's indoors now. This is the second year in a row it's indoors for the whole winter, and we have a number of farmers who are actually using high tunnels. Now, one of the things I've noticed, Claude, is that over the last couple weeks when things have gotten really cold, there's been a very great slowdown in what's been available for the most part.
Well, right now it's just winter crops. I grow sunflowers in pots, or sunchokes in pots. Salsify, which a lot of people have never eaten it. Once they eat it, it's just, it's amazing that they can, get something. Like I dug today, I had to break 4 inches of frost to get to it, but I finished it off today, so I'll have it again this weekend, this Saturday. But in the high tunnel, it's kind of slowed down. So, in the rest of the garden, the sunchokes I grow along the west side of my barn in the big pots that you get trees in, and I fill them with compost and peat moss, and then I bring them into the garage in this time of weather and let them thaw out, and then dump them out on the floor and dig through and get the chokes and put the dirt back in and plant them for next year.
And there you have the sunchokes. The sunchokes are great because they taste wonderful, and they also always leave you with something. We don't have to go into that any further. Cary loves to talk on the radio, so I figured I should talk to her for just a minute at least. How is your garden doing over the winter?
Well, we have a high tunnel also, but things are growing really slow right now. I'm picking more or less once every 3 weeks instead of picking once a week. So.
Is there anything you can do? I mean, obviously, I guess the only thing you can really do is you got to have some extra heat.
We've tried. We put smaller hoops up over the rows. We've run Christmas lights, and that gives us about 5 more degrees of temperature. But with the daylight hours being less and the temperature being so low in the teens, it's not really doing much right now.
Barb's she's easy. She decided not to grow in the winter. See, right. You retired.
I retired for the winter.
That's perfect. Now, Steve, you are producing a lot in that greenhouse.
Yeah, we have a lot of different kinds of greens going. We have turnips and carrots right now. We keep growing all through the winter, but as others have said, things slow down. Basically now we're picking greens that we're growing in October and November, and because what's growing now we won't be picking until February probably. So things are slow right now.
Yeah, it's interesting. And Kim Keller, who isn't here, I know she was going to plant some other crops. She was going to plant mosh, which I love mosh, and I'm hoping that she has, and we'll get something going. And you've got arugula, Steve, don't you? That's good.
Yeah, we have arugula.
That arugula has been nice, and the greens, the lettuce greens have been nice. All right, so we've got quite a wide variety, and hopefully, I guess one of the things that I'm wondering, Chef, when we talk about the vision that you have, do you have a vision that you'll be able to find enough farmers to do winter crops so that other than meat, for example, and grains, you can have actually green vegetables all year round?
Well, and that's one of the things that we're here for, is to explore the possibilities. And I know that Diane knows more about the meat setup, I know that we've got Tassel Ridge is interested. There's a meat locker in Lock Ridge, is that correct? The elk, the folk that produce elk, which is close by to Ottumwa. And there's another entity that doesn't come to mind, but we need to have some full-time spaces there. You know, and to think about this too, this is not a wholesale, market. This is not the big corporate chain. This is a nonprofit organization. It's here to benefit the community. So, we're looking at strategies to work with farmers from the very beginning to give them the edge, because obviously you'd like to make some money at some point. We've got to fill the place up. We've got to have tourism. We've got to have folks coming to buy. And so there's got to be that entertainment value there too. So we need to have a conversation, I think, about my big push is for a database. And I don't know whether you folks are working with a database or not, as far as being able to supply your product to chefs and to interested buyers, because everybody's on the internet. And so is there a convenient way? So I'm working with economic development at the school to look and see what we can develop as we work through this, and to kind of have a tag team, 1-2 punch, scenario where you guys are coming out on the top.
I think you're bringing up some interesting points, because a few minutes ago you said there's not a fine dining establishment in Ottumwa.
Well, my place.
I have to be. Well, you're right. Your place is. I don't want to belabor this point, but I think that we can say the same thing about Fairfield. There's no fine dining establishment in Fairfield either, and there also is a great lack of willingness on the part of restaurant owners to buy local food.
Yep.
For whatever the reason is. I don't know. Have any of you tried to sell your products to local restaurants? If so, I'd like to talk with you about that right now, about that point.
Of course, no fine dining, but I sell to Noodle House here in town. I think that's about it. Can you think of anybody else?
And have you gone to a number?
They're not.
Right, we're going to talk about Hy-Vee in just a minute, but have you gone to any of the other restaurants? You don't have to name them, but I mean, have you gone to any of them and talked to them about buying your produce?
I never have enough left over. Mine sells at the market.
Ooh, okay. Another, just like that popcorn. Another thing that I was thinking about is I wonder if there'd be any interest, Claude. I'll ask you about this. If you think there might be any interest to get all of the farmers together from Fairfield to put together a group of products that could be represented then on a regular basis at the market on Main in Ottumwa.
Well, I think we have some people that are increasing their capacity, and I think that's the key. Is just the growers are going to have to realize that they can sell it, and I think that's the big holdup.
Well, I think Barb actually can correct me if I'm wrong, but if I'm not mistaken, you have, and this is why I want to talk to Dennis, you have gone to Hy-Vee numerous times, and basically they've cleaned you out of stuff.
Yeah, I've sold watermelon over the summer, sweet corn. Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, I sell most of my stuff at the market, and I do not take hardly anything home, and I take a lot.
And so we're lucky from the vantage point that Hy-Vee, you can explain this, Dennis, that Hy-Vee does have a corporate commitment to buying local.
Absolutely. Hy-Vee is really driven at the store level. We want our store directors at the local level and our department managers at the local level to make those decisions. They have the autonomy, is the word that Hy-Vee uses, to do that. And so being responsible to our community and really listening to our customers, we wanted the local farmers represented within our store. We like to be able to tell the story of the farmer. We like to be able to show that to our customers and have that point of sale that it shows that, Barb grew these watermelons, and this is, we put her picture right next to them with the farm and all of that. And that, I think, just connects it back to our customer in such a way that people just don't think about that there are people in our area growing these things. We're so used to it just being shipped in from wherever, and it's just available on a shelf, and they don't think about where it comes from. And so we take that step to say we think that that's important, especially even as the store chef or all of that. I think that it's important, but that we as a company have really stepped back to say that it is important at the local level to bring that to our customers.
Yet at the same time, Chef, regarding the educational aspect of all this, I think that Dennis can back me up here. The Fairfield store is pretty unique in the Hy-Vee chain in terms of its support of local produce.
We may be, again, it's really driven, I always say so much of our store reflects our community. When the store was built almost 2 years ago, the community really spoke up to our corporate officers and said, this is the type of store that we want in our community. And Hy-Vee really stepped back and listened, and I think have created a store that reflects our community very well. And certainly we have a produce manager right now, Casey Barnett, who does a fantastic job of working with our local producers on, and getting them a fair price for their stuff, making sure that the farmer is taken care of, and in that same respect, that it's well merchandised and they're given space within our store that reflects that importance. So it's not like we bring them in and put them in the back of the store where nobody's going to find their product. We like to put them right up front, so it's the first point of purchase that they see when they come in.
Now, this isn't the case, though, in Ottumwa, for example.
Right. Well, but there's new management at North Hy-Vee. Corporate offices coming down the 17th. And we're going to sit down and talk about training, and we're going to talk about vision, because they have listened to us, and we've been talking to them for a long time. Because I'm in the process of transitioning into a setup where my students are cooking in a studio environment. In other words, it's a restaurant that's open to the public year-round. We've spent 2 years training and playing with the scheduling, because they have arts and science classes to do too, and the state's very peculiar about how things are done. It's mainly moving slowly, but what I want to do is to be able to buy microgreens, arugula, different things that you might be able to offer us on a smaller scale but consistently. Okay, you've got some space that you can do it. I want to connect and do that. Transitioning into ultimately where the food service department is, which is a separate entity, believe it or not, and that's a long story, is starting to buy more quantity, okay, and working with you. There's a series of hoops that we're still going through on that, but we're going to get there because we should be doing that.
So what we have is the need actually for a lot more dialogue between chefs, restaurateurs, and the farmers, so that the farmers can be given essentially a directive, which is we're here, we'll buy X if you grow it for us.
Exactly, and that's why it's important that we do things like this. And there needs to be more informational components out to the public. There needs to be more events, and that's another reason for this.
When we talk about this whole process, though, I think that I recall a story somebody told me a few weeks ago about a store in Cedar Rapids where the produce manager at that particular store doesn't carry any local produce because there's no demand. And my contention is, well, if you don't carry it, then how are you ever going to build demand? Mm-hmm. Now, before that, how about education? Because if we don't educate the public as to what's delicious and why it's important to eat local foods, then how do we expect them, why do we expect them to go buy it?
That's the most important part of this market, too, is the educational component, because if they don't know how to cook it, and if you don't make it entertaining to teach them how to cook it, you can't go up and say, tisk, tisk, you're eating that, and people don't respond well to that. It has to be, come on in, here's a little song and dance, let's have some interaction, Emerald Live kind of thing. There's some music, the kids are playing, there's a dancing clown and a juggling bear, I don't know, whatever it is, bring them in. And then you say, look, this kale is beautiful, let's do something with it. Oh, I can't eat that, I've never eaten that. And then cook it and let them taste it. So all of a sudden, now there's buy-in, okay?
We will have a demonstration kitchen for this very purpose. And we're working with Iowa State Extension, and they are very interested in helping us produce some programming for all walks of life who are interested in food. And most of us are.
I just feel a song coming on. I'm not sure what it is. Tom Allen's here. Last week you really, I thought maybe we're going to have to get some delay and maybe pull the plug with some of your words, but it worked out okay, right?
Oh, really? My goodness. Well, anyway, this is a song about growing your own. It's about having your own garden, and some of you may know this, Inch by Inch. By the way, I was at the Madison, Wisconsin Farmers Market last weekend, and somebody brought in this spinach that was so green, so whatever, brilliant, rich green, and it was so thick you could see the edge of it. Like a piece of paper, you can't see the edge, and most leaves you can't. This was so thick. It wasn't a 16th of an inch thick, but it was pushing it. It was thick enough so that you could see the edge, and absolutely delicious. And my friend I went with bought this stuff and ate it like candy. He just ate it raw because it's so good.
Has anybody here been to the Madison, Wisconsin Farmers Market other than Tom and myself? Stacy's been there. Okay, so make the trip. It's great in the winter, and it's unbelievable in the summer, but it's amazing in the winter. And honestly, I think it's something that somebody from the board, maybe on the Fairfield Farmers Market, might want to do. Just go up there. It's only a 4-hour drive. What'd you say?
Your bus going.
I think it's a good idea. Organize a bus. Maybe when Jan gets back into town, that's something that could be done. Have a weekend going to Wisconsin and experiencing the Madison Farmers Market, because it's quite extraordinary. I don't want to take the edge off of your song.
Inch by inch, row by row, gonna make this garden grow. All I need is a rake and a hoe and a piece of fertile ground. Inch by inch, row by row, someone bless these seeds I sow. Someone warn them from below till the rains come a-tumbling down. Pulling weeds, picking stones, we are made of dreams and bones. I feel the need to grow my own, 'cause the time is near at hand. Grain for grain, sun and rain, find my way through nature's chain as I tune my body and my brain to the music of the land. Inch by inch, row by row, gonna make this garden grow. All I need is a rake and a hoe and a piece of fertile ground. Inch by inch, row by row, someone bless these seeds I sow. Someone warn them from below till the rains come tumbling down. Plant your rows straight and long, temper them with prayer and song. Mother Earth will make you strong if you give her love and care. Old Crow watching hungrily from his perch in yonder tree. In my garden I'm as free as that feathered thief up there. Inch by inch, row by row, gonna make this garden grow. All I need is a rake and a hoe and a piece of fertile ground. Inch by inch, row by row, someone bless these seeds I sow. Someone warn them from below till the rains come tumbling down.
Tom Allen, everybody. Thank you. That was inspiring. Now I remember that song because Peter, Paul, and Mary did that song, and I used to love that. Plenty of people did it, but I loved their version of it. It was great. So now I'm hungry. So Nathan Allred is here. By the way, you're listening to Great Taste on KRUU 100.1 FM, the solar-powered voice of Fairfield, Iowa. We're broadcasting live from Hy-Vee. We have a great panel here representing Fairfield and Ottumwa, talking about local regional food. And we also have Nathan Allred, one of the students from the Indian Hills Culinary Arts Program. And Nathan, you've been very busy. What have you been doing? Oh, what happened to your mic?
It went bye-bye. Oh. So I cutting up these cheeses that we have here tonight. And I was expecting like 4, but we have a whole bounty. And I'm very pleased that some of them are Iowa products from Milton Creamery and also the Maytag Blue. But we also have some nice imported cheeses, some Asiago, some Gouda. And the people that are here are lucky they're going to get to taste it with some wine later on.
And we also have Picket Fence, which is located around Ames.
Excellent.
And we have some interesting, different things, very, very interesting. And, one thing I forgot, and I wonder if, Dennis, if we could get somebody to go out. I wanted to get one of those La Quercia prosciuttos for us to enjoy with that. That would be terrific. Can somebody go poach that off the shelf or not? Okay. I will well, we can send a volunteer out to poach it off the shelf. If somebody is willing to do that. He can't reach it. I know. He'd be perfect. He can't reach it. That's the problem. All right. I'm going to leave it up to somebody back there. Figure out where that La Quercia prosciutto. It's all the way back in the cheese department on the far end of the cheese department. Meantime, you also brought some bread for us to enjoy along with this. And the wine. I understand wine is something that's near and dear to you.
Right. Well, not for that reason, no. But
not for what reason? I didn't say anything. I just said it was near and dear to you.
So, yeah, I mean, part of our curriculum is obviously learning about wines and how to use them in cooking, but ultimately cultivating the palate to enjoy them in a reasonable way. And
that's the only way they should be enjoyed.
Of course, moderation for the wise men.
And I'm sure I see a lot of wise men and women around here. But anyway, I think that we have a variety of wines, and maybe either you or Chef can talk a little bit about some of the pairings that are easily within reach of somebody in their home. They can.
Of course, I mean, wine and cheese pairings are something that are matters of opinion rather than law or fact. I mean, it's not like Martha Stewart's going to come in here and pummel you if you get it wrong, but...
I'd like to see that, though.
I think I could take her.
Yeah, I would put my money on you.
I got a knife here. I mean, she was in prison, but...
That's right, you're right.
So anyhow, back to...
the conversation just degenerates very quickly when we get going.
Back to the wine and cheese. So we don't have any spectacular wines here today, but, you know.
Wait a minute.
No, wait, the Rioja's not a bad
Chef
one.
brought a bunch of wines, and you're saying we don't have any.
Passing judgment.
How about, are they any good? Are they any good, Nathan?
Well, we'll leave that up to vote in the room at the end of the show here. No,
you're absolutely right. It's a very interesting point that you brought up, because obviously wine, just like any other food product or beverage product, is made in all types of different qualities, all types of different growing conditions, and at all varying price levels too.
Of course. I mean, I'm sure they're not expensive bottles, but that doesn't mean they're not quality, you know. But we'll find out.
Right, everybody's going to have the opportunity to try some afterwards, and we're going to let the cheeses. One really important thing is to remember that cheese is best at room temperature. So this cheese is sitting, it's going to be out here for about a good hour, and it'll be absolutely delicious at that time, because you really can't taste the flavors if you take it out of the fridge and just start chomping down on it. And maybe there's some cheeses that you take out of the fridge and you don't really want to taste the flavors, so then, you know, like Velveeta or whatever it is. I don't know. Is anybody willing to admit if they have Velveeta in their refrigerator? Let me see. Oh my gosh! I am so, and yes, one of these people who raised their hand is a culinary student. I'm just like totally flipped out, you know. So anyway, well, I said one, but that's, do you mind? Yeah, do you mind? That'd be great. Thank you so much. Yeah, that's great. Yeah, this is expensive stuff. We can't, you know. so yes, thank you very much. So we'll let, and you don't need very much of it. So, but this is another Iowa product, La Quercia prosciutto americano, and something that we can enjoy with the cheeses and the wine.
You know, it's interesting too. Every time I leave the state, especially Chicago, we have these Les Amis events over there. And they always talk about Iowa product. And they always talk about Lois Reichert in Knoxville, her Derriere cheese, the goat cheese that she produces at Milton Creamery. Actually, Jim Lindemeyer, the president of the college, came back a couple months ago. He was in Washington, D.C., and he brought back the menu that featured Milton Creamery Prairie Breeze. And they had a great conversation about that. So it's funny when you come back to Iowa, though, that people don't recognize a lot of this. And so that's one of the things about education, again, is to try to introduce people to the things that we have. I mean, it's a great state. It's a chef's playground. You know, there's great things to be celebrated here. And certainly the integrity of the folks that live here, it makes a huge difference. These cheeses, too, I want to mention that wine and cheese, there's a lot more flexibility. You know, there are some really creamy, stinky French cheeses, like a Camembert, real Camembert, for example, that goes, you know, either pair it with a really big, robust red Cabernet Sauvignon. or you go with a Chardonnay as well, or a Cabernet, or a Sauvignon Blanc. There's a lot more acidity in it. The high acidic level of the cheese, it goes really well. So if you're a red wine fan, it works. If you're a white wine fan, it works as well. The peppery cheeses, I think there's a chili curd here that goes great with a Gewürztraminer. So there's a Gewürztraminer up here. There's a nice Rioja.
Maybe I should try that.
Yeah.
Chili curd and the Gewürztraminer. All right.
Some cheddars. We don't have any champagne. That'd go great with the cheddar. But we're on a champagne. A beer pocketbook, right? Champagne taste. So.
How about the chili with the Riesling? Because is that okay?
That'll work.
Because the Gewürztraminer isn't open, so I have to.
Okay.
It's important as the host to really know what you're serving all the people that are here. So
quality control.
Right. Exactly. Okay. Oh, that's a good curd.
Good.
That was Picket Fence. Yeah. I don't know if anybody's here is familiar with Picket Fence, but they have some great ice cream that they make and a lot of nice products. They make milk also. They're near Ames. They're near Ames, Iowa. Very good. Yeah, they don't sell to. I'm surprised to have seen these curds because it's pretty far south as far as a couple hours is concerned. What else about when you have any suggestions that are really simple for people to get started in terms of some type of wine that's easy to enjoy from the beginning that they don't have to develop a palate for, and then pairing some cheeses with it?
No, I think it's a question of everybody's probably had wine. Just buy what you think you like. I think white wines are a great way to start and then work into the heavier ones. Old guys that don't have taste buds anymore, go for blue cheese and because those stronger flavors, the Cabernet Sauvignon, and some people run away from that. The majority of wine that we sell and we buy in Iowa are sweet wines from Castle Ridge or some of the 91 wineries that we have. So I think just buy a bottle and buy a cheap one. It doesn't have to be more than $20. You can get a great bottle of wine for $12, $15. Actually, I've seen some great Bordeaux's, from some lesser known chateaus for $20 that are just great. So and then play.
Playing, I think, is the best. And I think it is good to stick with one thing for a little while, just kind of experience it that way. Also, as far as cheese is concerned, I know that Nathan has a couple of books here that he's brought, one of them being one of my absolute favorites. So do you want to tell us a little bit about that?
Right. We have Wine and Cheese Pairing Guide by Norm and Barbara Ray here. As you can see, I've been leafing through it pretty heavy, trying to sound like I know something tonight. So it's excellent. You can look up pretty much any wine, whether it's white, red, rosé, and it'll tell you cheeses of any type to pair with it. So this is Chef Gordon's copy, but I ordered mine already too.
Good.
And then I have the cheese primer by Stephen Jenkins here.
That's a great book too.
There's
you'll see a copy of that Gateway Market in Des Moines.
Right.
Yeah, at the cheesemonger's spot. It's great.
Yeah, it's one of my favorites, actually. So I would suggest that if you're interested in learning about cheeses, that's a great place to start with the cheese primer by Stephen Jenkins.
Yeah, it has more information than you'd ever want about any cheese you could think of. So you can see the bindings, not exactly worn out, but I got to study the wine too, so I don't know.
Well, we're going to get a progress report on you to make sure that you're doing okay, in your progression there. Also, another great book to use is What to Drink with What You Eat by Dornenberg and Page. So that's another one that you can look at. There's tons of stuff, but those are some good places to start. You're listening to Great Taste on KRUU 100.1 FM, the solar-powered voice of Fairfield, Iowa. By the way, KRUU FM is community radio. Community radio relies on your support. And so we ask you to go to the homepage of KRUU FM and click on, I don't know what it is. I think it says PayPal maybe, and pledge for an ongoing contribution would be fantastic. Any amount is absolutely welcome, and all of the programming, 99% of the programming on KRUU FM is locally produced programming, and it's quite extraordinary and has quite a breadth and depth to it, and we would appreciate that you realize that community radio relies on your support. So feel free to always drop into the studio, talk to James Moore, the station manager, and leave him a check when you walk out. He takes cash too, as far as that's concerned. Anyway, on Great Taste next week, The next 2 weeks, we will not be live. So those of you who are prone not to read your emails, please remember that. The next 2 weeks, we will not be live at Hy-Vee. Next week, we will have an interview that Kathy and I did with Frank Lotz, who is the author of an Ayurvedic cooking book, cookbook, a fantastic book, actually. Frank, I think, is one of the most fascinating Ayurvedic cooks I've ever met, because his take on Ayurveda is that when you cook in this manner, if you cook something that makes you happy, that is Ayurvedic cooking. And I think that's about the broadest interpretation I've ever heard of that type of cuisine. So that's coming up next week. The week after, we'll be playing an archived show, actually a really wonderful show that we did with the author of a book, Cooking with Gracie. And following that, we will be back live with a fantastic show that I'm going to have Chef tell you about, because we're going to be featuring 2 experts from Spain.
I'm excited. These 2 are good friends. You know, we've been going to Spain for 4 years now. We've had the good fortune to be able to go and compete in a international tapas competition in November. And then we go for 2 weeks for international studies. We have Spanish in the morning, cooking in the afternoon. We're in Cantabria, Madrid. A lot of traveling, a lot of local farms, and the farms are amazing in Spain. But these 2 folks, tomorrow I pick up Pablo Pablin, who is a 26-year-old young man who is one of the top sommeliers in Spain, who's going to be able to enlighten us on wine. He's a lot of fun. He taught himself English as well, which I find really remarkable. And he actually bows when he meets people. So I was impressed right off the bat. Okay, and some of the competitions that they have with the sommeliers over there are really intense. So he can do some blind tastings, and I think it's quite impressive for a 26-year-old man. Now, Fatima Perez also will be with us. She's the top mycologist in Spain, so she's an expert in everything mushroom. And I call her my mother-in-law because we fight a lot. She's about 5'5", okay, and she's always pointing her finger at me because I'm never doing anything right for her. So there's a lot of comedy relief too. I think it'll be fun to see how that works because she doesn't speak English. So, but she's a hoot. She's a great gal. She loves kids. She loves to work with food. She loves to promote food. She lives in a castle. I think that's quite unique. She has a great restaurant over there, and she's very down to earth.
January 30th, live at Hy-Vee, those special guests from Spain. And though we're going to have some wonderful shows in February, actually, we're going to have 2 fantastic shows in February, in addition to the other fantastic shows we're going to have in February. One is going to be about tea. That's at the end of the month. And Corey Tenney is here, who is our, did I get your last name right? Corey Morrow is here, who owns a wonderful tea shop locally here. And we're going to have another expert on with us and taste teas and learn about how you go about learning and tasting teas. That's at the end of the month. And prior to that, we're going to move our scene to KRUU Coffee. KRUU Coffee just opened in Fairfield, and Dennis Lopp happens to be multitasking. He has taken a crash course in how to not only be a barista, but how to manage and train staff and work all the different espresso machines and everything else in a KRUU Coffee shop. And he's going to really tell everybody about this experience, which has been pretty intense, right?
Absolutely. It's been quite overwhelming at points, but we have really spent the last week taking a staff of about probably 15 to 20 people and giving them a really hard crash course in how to be a barista. And, I consider myself a pretty good cook on average. And when I started off, I was not necessarily a good barista. Now I'm a pretty good barista, but the technique and the process of it was quite challenging. Because at least when you're cooking, sometimes if you make a mistake, you can work it out in the end. As a barista, that doesn't quite happen. So, but that's been a process, and it's just been exciting to learn about all the different coffees and the different, how it's grown, where it comes from, all of that sorts of education things that we've been talking about, learning about all of those products and how they fit into the variety of products that are out there. And it's been quite interesting. So.
Looking forward to that. That's February 13th, and if we get lucky, we'll have a representative from corporate KRUU also there with us, so we'll be actually on site in KRUU Coffee. I hope, James, that's not too big a shock and everything will be all right. We do have Wi-Fi there, right?
Absolutely.
Okay, so we'll be okay. Steve, you've been listening to this conversation, and I'm wondering, How do you see the evolution of the different farmers that are producing, for example, in Fairfield and working together with people from other communities that are close by?
Oh, I think that the whole local foods thing is growing dramatically. The Fairfield Farmers Market is one of the best in the state, and we're one of the few that has a winter farmers market. And we've got several growers here that are using the high tunnels now, and they're learning how to use them more effectively. I think in the coming years we're going to see some real good things coming out of here. And there's also some young farmers coming up that will be adding to our numbers, and I think that's really good because, they're as we've been talking about here, the market is wide open. There's a huge demand for local food, and at this point, the farmers are selling basically everything that we're growing, and so we need to grow more, and that includes having more farmers growing more. So I think there's tremendous growth going on here.
One of the things that I'm really looking forward to is more diversity, because I love the idea that we can try things that we've never tried before or that haven't been really easy to purchase in our local food economy. And so I think the more we support all the farmers, the more interested they'll be in trying to grow different things. I know, Barb, you grow quite a few different types of vegetables this year than you did last year. You added to your diversity.
Yeah, we added about 6 more acres to what we had originally started out with. So we did watermelon this year. We added to the popcorn acres. I can't think. Oh, peanuts was another new one this year, which I didn't know if they would grow here. We was just experimenting, and they turned out really good. So
very, very interesting. Cary, what about over this winter? You probably do some homework, right? And you're looking for new things to grow.
Mm-hmm. Oh, definitely. I mean, all the seed catalogs have been in for a couple of months now, and we've got our orders all mapped out and what we're going to grow. And we always try and grow 2 or 3 different things that we've not grown before. Mostly greens or different things that I'm going to be growing this year.
Well, that'll be interesting. It will be fun to experience that. Can we eat that salsa fee raw?
I don't know whether you can or not.
Nathan, would you do us a favor? Could you peel some of that? It's in the fridge. Could you peel some salsa fee or salsa fi, whatever you want, salsa fi?
Or oyster plant.
Oyster plant, right? Why is it called oyster plant?
They claim it has a slight or oyster flavor when you cook it with a cream sauce.
Interesting. Would you peel a little bit of that? Let's see if we can chow down on it and see what happens. It might be interesting to attempt. Do you know anything about that as far as raw?
It's raw. No, I've never tried it raw.
Well, we might as well try it. That's food.
You can use the new growth, like the top 4 inches of new growth in the spring, in salads. And some of this, I don't know where I left any green on this, but I picked some today that had green on it, and it's fantastic. It worked great in the salad.
All right, so that's a new thing that most people had never seen in this area, at least, right? I wonder, anybody familiar with ramps? Is that something that we could get going here in the spring?
It'd be great to have
that. That would be terrific.
Garlic.
Somebody look in your catalogs and see if you can come up with some possibilities for ramps.
Well, I was interested in those just to grow in my garden at home. And so I started looking around. It seems like it takes about 2 or 3 years for them to germinate. So I did buy some, and I planted some seeds in my yard. So in a couple years, I'll let you know.
That's awesome. Well, these guys have plenty of time. They can do that. That makes for some interesting diversity.
I think in the spring, I think you can buy them like as starts, like onion starts. But I don't think they're cheap, and I think they're hard to get.
Well, they're definitely not inexpensive, and when you see them on a restaurant menu, you probably have to dig pretty deep in your pocket if you're going to order something like that. But they're always, I remember having some a couple years ago at a really wonderful restaurant, Blue Hill at Stone Barns up in New York, and they were really wonderful.
Now, isn't that wild garlic?
I think that it's in that family. I'm not positive. We could look it up and see.
I have a a place out northeast of town where he used to live, and I had read an article out of New York, and they said that if you had a patch, it's just like gold. You didn't let anybody know where it was at. So I was out one day and looked around, and I thought, that's what they look like. So I took a shovel out there, but it took me a while to get brave enough to sample it. So.
Well, I personally think that even if it's not, you probably should just call it ramps and sell it at the price that they're at. Chef, can you tell us a little bit about what the next step is for Market on Main? Because we need to get more community involvement here to try to get some things moving forward a little bit.
And that's a good question for Diane.
Thank you, Chef. Right now, we're working on getting committees together to help with our operations side of setting up how, much like the Fairfield Farmers Market, they have all their rules and regulations, and that's something that we'll need to be doing, and we're soon we will have a market manager, and that person will be on staff the 1st of February, and we will be asking for more help and input, and you can contact us. And that would be great if there are some suggestions and ideas that could be helpful to. We don't need to reinvent the wheel. We'd like all input that we can get and to make it a smooth transition into making a larger area for people to get more fresh produce and for the producers to have a bigger market. And that's what we'd like to help them too.
I think that Iowa is moving dramatically forward in this. It's already has more farmers markets per capita than any other state in the country. Am I right about that? Yes. Okay. And in addition to that, Nubo Market just opened in Cedar Rapids, which is, I think, the same principle as what you are working on at Market on Main. And I see. I have very sharp eyesight, and I see that Bob Blankenship just walked in with a loaf of bread, and I would suggest, since nobody's eaten anything for this entire hour, that you hold that pretty tight because you could have people that are going to attack you. Since we haven't let them get. Yes. This is the advanced okra class. Thank you for coming, and we have a lot of slime here to let you enjoy. Anyway, Chef, can you tell us a little bit about your program? How's everything going there in terms of the students? You have a new term starting, but also this diversity that you have developed in the program itself. How are you seeing, as far as what are you seeing as far as the community and the whole college response to the growth of this culinary program at Indian Hills?
It's a perfect question because I'm doing program review. We do this every 3 years. All programs do. We have reaccreditation to the American Culinary Federation. That happens every 6 years. So I'm looking at data. I spent the last month looking at data, making little graphs and charts. But I can tell you, as I look at all the stuff that we've done over the past 6 years, that's how long I've been here, and I don't want to say it's just me. I want to say that when I came and I brought the ideas, that people connected to those ideas, and we've been able to create something great. Our enrollment is up. This is our best enrollment of the 6 years that I've been there. We've worked to create a Iron Chef program where I have money to give out, but I want to go to high schools and bring those kids in and have them perform. And if they're excited, then I give them money. I don't want to give it just anybody. So after 6 years of doing that, it's amazing what we've got now. And this group of kids from the fall term are spectacular. And it's not just cooking. They're bringing new things to the table. We give them a lot of flexibility. I want them to be innovators and have creative thought and to be able to come to the table with ideas and not be afraid to express themselves. So it's quite unique. It's a unique program, especially the international piece too. I think that's important because a lot of the kids that we have, they come, they've never been in a plane, much less out of the state, and to see the transformation when they go to a different country and to see how people dress and how they talk, and there's art and there's music and architecture and literature, it makes a huge impact on these kids. It comes back and changes things. So it's very good.
Ramps, by the way, it's Allium trichocum.
So it's garlic.
And so it's ramp, spring onion, wild leek, wood leek, and wild garlic. So I'm not sure if we could pinpoint from that description why chefs are getting so much money, for ramps on their menu. But Claude, I would suggest you find that patch before spring and really put a high price on it and people will buy it.
Well, I brought a bunch of them back to my place, and I planted them, and I guess I didn't even follow up on them to make sure that they grew.
Well, now it's all just a PR. That's all you need to do, and you're okay. You could retire after your spring ramp crop, right?
Actually, I'm already retired.
You don't look like it from all the work you do. Let me put it that way. Anybody have any questions for our panel? Because if you have any questions, now is the time to ask them.
When I first came to Fairfield in '85, for quite a few years, in the spring you could get morels at Hy-Vee, and then the state, I guess, outlawed since they were a wild crop. I think somebody should lobby to get them back to be able to sell them.
So if you don't know what morels are, they are one of the most delicious mushrooms around, and I'm wondering, first I want to just ask, is there anybody who regularly is available at the Fairfield Farmers Market who is collecting morels? I know we didn't have a good year for them this year.
Claude and I went and got certified to be morel inspectors. So the last couple of years, there hasn't been very many. So it's kind of hard to find them. But maybe this year we'll get lucky. But the customers or the vendor can bring them to the market. Claude and I have to certify that they are edible, and then they can sell them at the market. And I think that could be the same for, I don't know what Hy-Vee has in place for selling them here.
And that is an answer I don't know. I also think part of that component is being able to find somebody who has them in a high enough volume to be able to sustain that customer. That's also a component of that, in addition to the food safety aspect of it. Because a lot of times you come up with a producer or somebody who has morels and they have like a bread sack full of them, and that isn't quite enough to sustain, a department who, the customer base that we have. So,
I'm starting to think about spring.
Nobody's ever figured out how to cultivate morels.
All the best things from that type of family, morels, truffles, nobody can really cultivate those very well.
Hi, this is a question for Chef Rader. Steve was able to put on the KRUU blog on the website a chart that you had, a circular chart from someplace. I couldn't make it get any bigger to read the writing. Would you be so kind as to give us a link for that?
If you print it out, it's big. So print it out, just put it on your computer, right? Print it out on your printer, and it's great big. That's the only way I could read it too, because my eyes are not. Yeah.
All right. So I've got to look at my clock because I think, unfortunately, time is passing us by very quickly. Anybody have one last question? We have enough time for one last question to our panel. Anybody have anything? Well, I want to thank all of you very much for taking the time to come. I know that you're all very busy, even though you're retired, Claude. And I also want to thank all of you for the dedication that you show by spending the amazing amount of time it takes to grow all of these products and bringing them to us so that we can enjoy in our homes. Chef Rader, we wish you the best in terms of getting everything moving and getting this Market on Main project completed, because that'll give us an opportunity to show off a lot of local and regional products. Everyone who's here gets the opportunity to come up now and enjoy the cheeses and wines that we have. And don't forget, Great Taste is broadcast live almost every Wednesday from Hy-Vee at 7 p.m. The next 2 Wednesdays, though, we will be strictly on the radio, not live at Hy-Vee. Thank you for enjoying, we hope, 60 minutes of the greatest, most delicious radio that you've ever experienced. Tom Allen, thank you for all the wonderful music, and please enjoy some great tastes.
Great taste. Sweet. Sour. so good to taste.